welcome to Gilmore's Glorious Gossip, a show where we'll be talking about Critical Role over on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. This week's art that you're seeing on the screen now is from @EA_Downs, also known as Eilish, over on Twitter. If you'd like your art featured here, please let any of the show's hosts know via Twitter, and we'll do our best to get it on. There is a lot of Critical Role art out there, so please don't be disappointed if we don't manage to get it in a timely manner. We will try to get to it. But right now we're just picking and choosing individuals that we can ask for their permission. I'm Akiva, found on Twitter at AKIVADAPHYDD. That's Akiva David. And joining me today is my excellent friend, fellow critter, and amazing DM, Kalia.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kalia at Cosmic Candy on Twitter, and also the DM of Desert Winds on the Critters Community Twitch channel on Thursday nights, 3 hours prior to Critical Role. Come join us.
So if you're on the East Coast, that'll be at 5 p.m. If you're on Pacific time, that will be at 4 p.m. I had to do math real quick.
Yeah, we're 2 hours ahead of Pacific time, and that's 6 Central. So yeah, it's 3 hours before Critical Role standard time.
Indeed. So as you know, we do a little introduction topic at the beginning of each episode. And today's topic: what is your favorite D&D monster and why?
Oh, Akiva, I think you know what my answer is for this one. I think you know. Do you want to take a guess at it?
Well, keep in mind, I haven't been in since the very beginning of Desert Winds, so...
But I talk about it a lot.
You do. The one that I know you talk about the most is the Death Slod.
And that is my answer, indeed. It's a medium aberration packed full of evil and plot and malintent, and it's got some really cool abilities like Cloud Kill. It does necrotic damage with its claws and with its sword. It's just a badass, evil, ugly-looking thing, and I love it.
And the players hate it.
And the players hate it, especially when they're level 3 going up against the thing. It pretty well scared the bejeebers out of them, but they got through it okay. So,
indeed.
You can talk to Ari about her encounter with the Death Slod, because she was definitely there for it.
Yes. In my particular case, I would have to go with, and it's a little cliche, but I have to go with the Black Dragon. It is a classic, and it's only cliche because it's used so often. But dragons are highly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And the dragon life cycle, you can introduce a dragon to a level 1 party. Granted, it's a little, dragon.
It's a wormling.
Wormling, but it's a dragon. So.
Oh yeah, good stuff. And the blacks are fun because of their they've got the acid breath.
Absolutely. And
they can also cast sleep and stuff, can't they? Am I remembering right from the black dragons?
I believe so. I don't have the monster manual open, but yes, I do believe so. Dragons in general are incredibly magical creatures, so they have a lot of versatility, especially as they get higher in age. Dragons don't level up, they age.
Yep. Well, and that's what happened to me when I turned 30. I didn't
You didn't age, you leveled up, yep. That happens to all of us. So, today we are going to be talking about episode 41. And again, it's too early for the title to have been announced yet. So I'm calling it The Search for Gilmore.
It's fair.
Yes. Especially considering the title of our own show. So, when the episode opens, they're still talking with Allura and
Drake.
For some reason, I wanted to call him Drake Band, but it's Thunderbrand.
Drake Thunderbrand.
Yes. I have trouble with names, guys. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's why he's got us here. We've got to keep him on the the straight and narrow.
Indeed. But they discussed, possible allies still alive within the city. And it was Vax that brought up that they had a tunnel from the keep into the city. Now, I remember them asking when they realized what's-his-name had gone rogue and was working with, the vampire people. I don't even... They caused me so much heartbreak, I don't even want to say their name.
Those who shall not be named.
Yes.
Vaxio was his name. I can't remember his last name right now.
Yeah, neither can I. But Vaxio had actually designed their keep, and they had asked, does he have a secret way into the keep? And then, Liam, brought up the fact that there is a tunnel going from the keep into the city. And I was like, wait a minute, why didn't you guys check that immediately when Vaxio went rogue?
Well, part of the reason that they didn't check it out is because the stuff with the Briarwoods hit the fan so quick. They had every intention as soon as they found out that the Briarwoods were in town, and kind of once they found out who was in charge of this betrayal, who was feeding the Briarwoods information, they had every intention of looking at this stuff, because they're like, that's who designed our keep. Did he build something into our keep? But then everything with the Briarwoods hit the fan, and they weren't able to check it out.
Well, they didn't find out about Vaxio until they got back after dealing with the Briarwoods. I believe it was actually in the paperwork they found down in Whitestone.
I seem to remember something sooner than them coming back, but...
Well, like I said, they were still in Whitestone, but, they found that paperwork and then brought it to Uriel, and Uriel was like the one who actually mentioned out loud, and that's when they realized, oh, wait, he built our keep. Oops. But no, so as they were talking about all of that, I thought it was rather interesting that it was Grog that brought up looking for Gilmore. Like, Vax was taking a back seat on it all.
Well, and I mean... Grog was, he was there. Who was near him, because he was right up on that dragon first thing. So he was asking, was anybody else near Gilmore? I had my attention diverted basically by this dragon. I was trying to kick its ass. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting that Grog brought it up. But I think I know Vex had mentioned several times, where's Gilmore? Has he survived? We need to find him. What about Uriel? So, I mean, several of the characters have mentioned Gilmore. It was just that Grog happened to be the first one to lead it off this time around, I think.
True, but I mean, even through it all, after the last scene between Vax and Gilmore, with the ill-fated kiss, I would have thought that Vax would have at least had a passing thought for him, and I don't know. Liam, I'm going to chalk this one up to Liam not feeling at 100%, because he looked pretty tired during this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, one of the things about these episodes, especially here lately, yes, they're a good story, but they're emotionally draining. So I'm not even sure that the players have completely recovered from, holy shit, Imani's burning, and, NPCs are frozen and dead, and stuff like that. I was really happy after the Briarwood arc that we got a little bit of levity with the Winter's Crest Festival.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we got a little bit more levity, this episode with the thug fight, but
Or therapeutic ass kicking, as Marisha
Right.
said.
Right, the cathartic ass kicking. But I mean, it's entirely possible that they're reeling from the feels, as Twitter would put it, as much as we are.
Oh yeah, probably more so because they're right in the center of it. We're just watching essentially from a distance. Not saying that we aren't feeling any, because we most certainly are. It's just they're the ones having to make the decisions.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then Scanlan brought up the Thieves Guild, which I thought was actually rather fitting. I know, Vax is a rogue, and I know Vex cross-classed into rogue, but they don't like the Thieves Guild, so it sort of makes sense. It made sense there. But, going back, alright, touching a little bit on last episode, they also asked a few more questions about Thordak's past, and Marquette. And then Allura mentioned the libraries again, and for the life of me, I can't remember the exact title for those libraries.
Cobalt
something or other. There was something after that Cobalt, and I can't. That's the part that I can't remember.
I don't remember it either. And the only reason I'm remembering Cobalt is because I heard it as Kobold the first time around. Or I intentionally put out Kobold. I was like, yip.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, I know she said Cobalt. I know she did, because I was going to catch hell otherwise. But, yeah, I thought it was interesting that she mentioned those libraries as well. Did we find out if they had burned?
No, there hasn't been any word on that yet. One of the libraries is in Westruun. The other one is in Vasselheim. I think the one in Vasselheim is perfectly safe. But Allura had
perfectly safe being a relative term.
Well, true. But I believe Allura was bringing it up as, right before she explicitly stated that she and Drake were going to go to Westruun to check on that library.
Right.
But, that put the party in a position where they essentially had three options. Either try to go to Westruun with Allura and Drake, try to get to Vasselheim to get some assistance, or stay and find allies. And
going to Westruun with Allura and Drake was basically shot down by Drake when he said, the lot of, us two alone are equal to you lot.
Yeah.
After which his eyes sparked with lightning for a second, which I thought was really awesome. I loved that image.
And then Allura saying that, we can get through with a little more discretion than a larger group. But yeah.
And she also said that you guys are more attuned and set up to do a more widespread search, a door-to-door kind of search, and see who you can find, because you've done it before.
Indeed. So, I just thought it was rather interesting that Allura went out of her way to say, and this is a direct quote from Matt, that Vasselheim will play a key role. I love how, he tied in whatever behind-the-scenes networking he may have been working with Ashley on, because Pike was in Vasselheim for so long.
Mm-hmm. Right. Building her temple. Rebuilding that temple.
Exactly, and not to mention, they're contracted with the Slayer's Take, so that might be a possible assistance there.
Well, and, I said a couple episodes ago, I think it was our first episode of Glorious Gossip, where Vox Machina is not in this alone. they have allies. They have powerful allies. And a Sphinx, if we think about it, I had forgotten about it at the time, but a Sphinx is a very powerful ally to have. Very powerful.
Until you mentioned it just now, I had completely forgotten that they had a Sphinx that essentially owed them one.
so yeah. Vox Machina is not in this alone. So getting the Slayers, the people at the Slayers Take, the Sphinx at the Slayers Take. I mean, they've got Kima there. They've got, now we know that they've got Drake Thunderbrand, which probably is going to pull in more from House Thunderbrand later down the line, if I had to guess.
Not to mention, considering how powerful they are, all they need is a little bit of weight, and that entire Dwarven kingdom.
Yep, Craighammer will probably join in.
Oh yeah,
throw in. So I mean, Vox Machina isn't alone, but they just need to weigh their options and figure out who the best allies are going to be.
Yeah, need to utilize those resources. Which brings up Percy asking about Whitestone. It was rather interesting that Matt had allowed Allura and Drake to have been there for 2 days, studying the sphere of destruction, for lack of a better term. But, honestly, I had expected them to still be on their way to Whitestone, with the way he was describing the time frame.
Well, Allura had mentioned, though, that she had been able to teleport.
Yeah, but she didn't have anything set up in Whitestone to be able to teleport there. So I'm just glad that to me, from my intelligence analysis background, that was an instance of Matt giving just a little bit of extra assistance for the party to be able to focus on the current issue rather than having to worry about, not only the sphere of destruction but also the dragons, because that would have just ended up confusing things.
Right, Matt is a master of leading the party in the direction that they need to go without obviously leading them in that direction.
Yeah, without railroading them.
Right.
But I just question if that sphere of destruction is going to end up playing a part in the future with these dragons. Because I know Keyleth was actually... Was it Keyleth or Vex that was talking about possibly using it as a weapon? I know it was one of those two. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Percy asked about it and was talking about it as potentially using it for a weapon as well.
Yeah.
He said maybe we can move it here and then use it as a weapon against them. And I don't remember who jumped on board, but and I also forget, is this when they mentioned Bahamut? Because Vex was like, Bahamut's a good guy, yeah?
Yeah, that was back when they were talking about Vasselheim.
Okay.
Because the dragons were... Matt had mentioned that the dragons were likely to avoid Vasselheim because there's a big presence of the followers of Bahamut there.
Okay.
But no, at that point, the meeting sort of broke up, and Allura and Drake were like, we really have to get on our way. So Keyleth decided to go commune with nature one last time. But can we before we get into Keyleth's spell, that travel by spark?
Oh yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time is Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Oh yeah.
And in there they've got the electrical gremlin.
Yes.
And he's bouncing all over the place, and that's kind of what I was thinking of when Matt mentioned spark. I thought of that electrical gremlin immediately.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
What was the other one? There was it Sliders in the 90s where they did something kind of similar?
No,
to that? Like the animation was similar. What they
did was they entered a spatial distortion, sort of like a
Okay.
portal. What I imagine Dimension Door would look like.
Okay. Yeah, because I had flashes of kind of those two things, whether they were accurate or not. I may not even be thinking of the right TV series, but there was one that I seem to remember. It may have even been Power Rangers, where they kind of traveled like that. But yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So, okay, going back to Keyleth's commune with nature, um, I thought it was like you could tell by the look on Matt's face. I don't think he actually rolled a natural one when Keyleth was trying to give hope to the refugees. I think he sort of gave that to Keyleth. Um,
I don't know. Everything in his voice actually said natural one, though.
no, I don't think so, because usually when he gets a natural one, he'll say natural one really quickly in whatever sentence he's saying it. But this one, he sort of drew it out a little bit, and he looked like he had to think about it a second. Whereas the other one, the other times he has this look like, oh great. But this time it was a, oh, what do I do? Okay. But um, but yeah. So then Keyleth went and casted her commune with nature, and at that point I was starting to squee because she was asking about Gilmore and actually got a response.
Right.
Um,
Right. And then she asked about Uriel
and
and did
got
not get a response.
yes. However, that goes in line with how I perceived the spell, because Gilmore was still alive. You should get a response. Uriel was dead. Didn't
Right.
get a response. Spoiler for anybody who is following us along to in lieu of watching the episode. But spoiler warnings for should have already gone out.
Yep. Yep. Maybe we should add that to the intro.
Yeah, maybe we should. I will rewrite that intro for next episode. But yeah, I was squeeing because I was like, oh good, he's still alive. And then the way Matt put it, when I actually stopped and separated out my own feelings from the actual information given, well, maybe he was just in range. His body was in range of the spell. It's not quite a given yet.
Well, and I think Matt also used the. I think he also used the phrasing that you are getting a faint signal, which to me indicated, "Hurry, guys! He's on death's door."
Absolutely. By the same token, though, they needed the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really blame them for taking the 8 hours of sleep. But just before they did, I thought it was rather interesting that Percy asked about the skull, and then Grog asked about the skull.
And Vex said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yes, that I liked. But I just want to know, why are they looking for more darkness? I mean, I get out of character why, but in character, why?
Well, I mean, I think for Percy, he said he's not planning to use the skull. He's trying to prevent it from being used. So he just wanted to make sure that it was out of Grog's hands, I think, at that point.
True, I'll give Percy a pass on that one. But Grog, why?
Yeah, I mean, he still is trying to use it so that he can reverse the situation. But I think that whisper that Laura had with Matt was her passing it off to Allura, because she embraced Allura and she still had the skull in her hands. If you remember from episode 40, she had tucked it back behind her back when Drake and Allura came in, and then she pulled it back out later to have Allura identify it,
And then, hit it again, but never actually gave it up. And she
right?
did. I seem to remember, and I'll have to go back and look to be 100% certain, but I think she actually made a roll for that.
I don't recall. I really don't.
But I mean, granted, it was kind of sly. Because she has a habit of playing with her dice.
Yep.
And I think she hid it in that because she actually looked down at them at one point. And that's where I went, But because I didn't put the two together. Bad analyst.
Bad.
Yes.
Let nothing slip by because it's all important.
Yep, and then the nightmares where even if it wasn't as evident, or if people still had their doubts after last episode about Thordak having a hand in the twins' backstory, Matt came right out and said it. Yeah, he came right out and said it. I will learn English sooner or later, I promise.
Your Draconic is great, though.
Oh, and then they wake up the next morning, and Vax does something that, on one hand, makes sense, but on the other hand, is a jaw-dropping character growth for her. She gives Jarrett 300 gold to care for the refugees, and then tries to give him 100 gold as bonus pay.
I'm going to stop you because you just said Vax. Vax.
Yeah.
It's even written in the guideline as Vax.
Yeah. But I was reading it off of my notes, and it says Vex in my notes. So I don't know why. I must have been tired when I was typing it up.
So yeah, I mean, she does something completely out of character for her. And yeah, I mean, she gives Jarrett the 300 gold and then the 100 as bonus pay, and he says keep it.
Yes.
And that was something that, I mean, we see this moment with her where she's like kind of seething a little bit because she's like, you stubborn man, take this money that I'm offering you. I don't do this very often. Let me do this.
But at the same time,
she's like, I resist the urge to grab him and mug him on the mouth.
Yes. So are we going to call that Jex or Verret?
Actually, I think in the Critters community chat I was in while we were watching the episode, I think they called it Jarrex.
That's a good one. I like that. Well,
I think they called it Jarrex. Jarex.
That, I like that. We'll go with that. But then all the fanfic and fan art jokes. So if you guys are doing fanfics or fan arts, please let us know.
That's one we want to see.
Definitely want to see that one. And I do like the labyrinth reference after they actually set out through the secret tunnel.
Yep.
It's a gnome-sized tunnel, so therefore a trinket looks like, quote, one of those cleaners from Labyrinth.
Yep. Well, and going back just a second on Jarex, it was insinuated that even Vax was there to see this moment, and of course the party was like, "Who are you? What have you done with Vax? What are you doing right now?"
Yeah.
So even the party was kind of taken aback by it, but Vax was like, "What are you doing? Go after him!"
Yeah.
It's clear that you want him. So
and here I thought she was actually, trying to build something up with Seeker Assume, but but no, it looking back at everything, it does sort of make sense. Jarrett is available on site. But yeah, and then as they're going through the tunnels and everything, it was rather interesting with Vax sort of explaining why he's been so distracted. His comments to Vex He's treating every moment as if it's his last possible moment on the face of the planet.
Right. To quote Tim McGraw, live like you were dying.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep. But that lockpick roll.
30.
And then he...
That was hot. See, as a DM, I love stuff like that. You know, where I set an insane number because of the difficulty of the, you know, what you're actually trying to do in world. And it actually happened in our last Desert Winds game. I set you a incredibly difficult number for, you know, trying to pull those skeletons and stuff back into the Lifestone. And you did not succeed. But
well, yeah.
I wanted to give you something for I mean, because you had a high roll. You had an 18. I wanted to give you something with that, so you actually kind of communed with the dead a little bit. But yeah, I mean, to give an insane number like that, and then to have your player actually hit it, is awesome. It's an awesome feeling as a DM, and it's an awesome feeling as a player, because you're like, hell yeah, I nailed that shit.
I fully expected him to sit there and brag about it, but he's so focused on moving forward and enjoying life. He's just, yeah, it wasn't even locked. So, but
yep.
And can I squee over Trinket as a red panda?
Oh, I was dying. As soon as they said red panda, I was dying.
Those things are so cute.
They're adorable.
For those of you who don't know what a red panda looks like, pause this podcast right now and go Google it.
Go look it up. Go look it up.
You can
You're not going to be disappointed.
Indeed. You can restart after you get back.
They're adorable, and they're also very actually, you know what? I'm going to take it back. They're adorkable.
Yes,
because
yes,
in nature they are they're little bundles of idiocy.
Yes.
I mean, there's the gif that I always think of is the one with the trainer, who comes walking up to the glass door, like there's a sliding glass door or something. He comes walking up, and this red panda looks up and sees him after not having seen him there, like just a second before, and like completely freaks out
and falls backwards. Yeah,
falls backwards. And, ah!
It's insane. I mean, yeah. So now that you guys are back from, you know, squeeing over that, that moment of levity between Keyleth and Vex.
Oh, we even got the Trinket eye roll too.
Oh yeah.
Just hurry up and polymorph me. I know you're gonna do something to me, so
yes.
Just get it over with.
Yes. And then we switch over to the description of death and damage in the city. And I almost had to leave the stream when Matt started talking about the woman holding in her arms. At that point, I was like, no, don't you dare say she has a kid.
Yep.
And fortunately, he didn't. But if he had, I would have had to have left, because that's a PTSD trigger for me.
Yep.
As it was.
Yeah, and I'm a parent too, so I mean it's a sensitive subject for any parent.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a son myself, but you know, even with just the suspicion that that's what was going to happen, right. I had to take another dose of my meds, and I was like, oh boy. Matt, you're too good at your job. Tone it down a little.
yeah. Kick it down from 11. 10 is just fine. 10 is as good as 11. Promise.
Oh.
But I mean, you know, Matt is giving the realism here. I mean.
Oh yeah.
In any war zone, that's what's gonna happen. You know,
absolutely.
Like it or not. That's what's going to happen, and this, for all intents and purposes, is a war zone right now.
Oh yeah, that happens on a war zone when both sides are actually trying to be good. That sort of thing can happen. Just
Dragons
dragons
no,
they give
no,
no
no,
fucks.
no cares.
They have them to give, they refuse to do so.
Yeah, they choose not to.
Yes. Which is even worse than not having any to give. But, yeah. And then Garthok shows up.
Nice. With the realization that he's playing Drizzt in Neverwinter.
Jason Charles Miller, the voice of Drizzt Do'Urden.
Yep.
And he does...
I didn't realize that was him playing that voice. Actually, maybe I did. I think I had looked it up before and had seen it. I'm kind of surprised that he isn't the voice of Drizzt in Sword Coast Legends, though.
Well, unfortunately, the behind the scenes thing that was done through two different contracts, and they were actually recording those at the same time.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
As I understand it, I could be wrong. I haven't actually seen the contracts. I haven't, but as I understand it, the recordings overlapped.
Well, Akiva, we need to try and get into the Underdark then, and go through the Drizzt section of Neverwinter.
Absolutely.
There's some good gear to be had there.
Yes. But I fanboy Squeed. I've been a fan of Drizzt Do'Urden since the beginning. And it's just... R.A. Salvatore is one of my absolute favorite authors of all time. So, yeah, enough fanboying from me.
I haven't been on the R.A. Salvatore bandwagon for that long. Couple years ago, though, I got a thing from Humble Bundle, I think it was, that included an anthology of a whole bunch of different R.A. Salvatore stuff, and it was read by different voice actors. Like Will Wheaton read some, and Ice-T read one, and there were a whole bunch of different, like Sean Astin, I think. So there were a whole bunch of different well-known actors reading these different excerpts.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what got me started. And for Christmas this year, I actually bought my daughter the first book in the Drizzt Chronicles. So she's starting to read them.
Yeah. Definitely a good read for anybody that hasn't even looked at them yet. Highly entertaining from beginning to the end.
And Drizzt is just a badass, especially with
yeah.
Gwen Huivar, his panther.
Yeah, although it's spelled oddly, it's actually pronounced Guinevere.
Okay, well,
just letting you know.
It's all good. It's all good. So then we get to the fight.
We get to Gilmores, and it's in Gilmore's Glorious Goods, laying in ruins, being looted. The party's pissed. I'm in a panic because, wait a minute, Gilmore was supposed to be here. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But, I think Grog, Grog and Keyleth said it best. Grog with his, Vex, please let me off the chain. And then Keyleth, well, more along the
lines
of
character. Marisha said it.
Yeah. Talking about the therapeutic ass-kicking. They needed that.
I needed that.
we all did, yes.
And then what about Grog hitting critical mass?
So
that was insane.
So he very much bordered on the highest amount of strength a character can have without special circumstances. And of course, Craven Edge is a special circumstance, so it would have continued to go up.
Yeah, Craven Edge is a magical weapon. So
yeah, but
Player's Handbook basically says you can't hit 20 unless you've got a magical item that would allow it to go further than that. So that's what was happening.
And he got up to, I believe, 22.
Okay.
Because he,
I remember for sure it went up at least 2 points.
oh, it went up like 4. So he was at 21 because it went up 4 points. And he was at 17 because he had to essentially lose the amulet that took him to 19. So he was down at 17, went up 4 points, and hit 21 temporary strength.
Nice.
And when Marisha had Keyleth go Minxie, I want those claws that she pulled out and put on.
I could actually find you the spot where you can buy those. I know the leatherworking company that makes them.
That is awesome.
So I could find those for you. I'll get with you after after the podcast.
And if anybody wants the link, let me know. I will send it to you personally.
Or you could just post it in the description.
I'm not going to do that quite yet because that is a commercial move, whereas a one-on-one is a personal thing. And considering the channel that this is, going up on is monetized and part of a multi-channel network, I don't want to do anything commercial that might interfere with my contract.
Fair enough.
But going back to the fight, those thugs had no idea what they were stepping into.
Nope. I mean, if it were me in that situation, and, Grog pulls out this huge sword, Vax has 2 daggers pulled and is like, move on, and Vex tries to shush him and he's like, move on.
They were given plenty of warning.
And then the fire hands come out. As soon as those fire hands came out, I would have bugged out. I would have put my hands up and said, all right, we'll go find somewhere else.
Yep.
You guys are obviously passionate about this building. Whatever the reasoning may be, we'll move on.
Yeah. And can we talk about, Pike's bloodlust for a moment? I know she's paused before she did her attack and was like, is everybody okay? Do I need to heal anyone? Doing the cleric thing. But as soon as she was told, no, we're all fine, she was like, good, I want to kill something.
Right. Well, I mean, and that kind of fits with her character because, after her whole encounter with death, she didn't want to be seen as weak anymore. And she hasn't been able to exercise her combat prowess here lately.
No, I agree. I fully agree. It was just amusing to see, finally, she was like, finally, I can do something. And she did.
Yep, she did.
Oh, boy. And can we talk about Trinket's kill, too?
Yeah.
Those were awesome.
Okay, so I think it was interesting. It makes me wonder if Matt has been listening to our podcasts because last week we were talking about Rangers not getting the benefit of an attack.
Absolutely. Now, I will say Laura still had to give up one of her attacks in order for Trinket to attack, but it was no longer the full action. So I think he did. And I'm not sure if he's actually been listening to the podcast or not. I'm not going to.
That's the fangirl in me dreaming big.
I know, but I'm going to fanboy out too much if I ever find out that the cast actually has listened. But by the same token, I know it has been said in other places as well, and I think Matt has turned it into. Instead of full round action, attack for attack.
And that would make sense. I mean, that's a good way to balance it.
Oh, yeah. Because it's essentially the ranger for that attack is focusing on their animal companion, giving the order, and making sure that it's followed through.
Right. As a DM, I would be willing to allow the ranger to basically split their move and their number of attacks between them and their animal companion. So if you want to move 15 feet this round as the ranger, okay, and then you still have 15 feet for your animal companion, okay, I'm fine with that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a good way to balance it. You know, basically sharing that pool of attacks, sharing that pool of movement. That's a good balancing mechanic, and maybe Wizards can take a look at something like that too.
Oh yeah, because we already know that Chris Perkins, watches Critical Role.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that they saw that and they were like, that's a good idea. Let's update that.
Right.
But immediately after Trinket rips the head off of one of the, just completely rips it off. Percy goes for his attack, and Pike throws out her War God's Blessing to make sure it hits. Talison's comment, "This is such a confused gun." It really is.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
I mean, between Divine and Infernal or Abyssal, depending on which Warlock he took, it's just bouncing back and forth between the extremes. I'm surprised it doesn't just explode in his hand out of confusion one day.
And it may still. We don't know.
Oh, of course. But, and then Grog going all Mortal Kombat. Cut you in half, cut you in half, cut you in half.
I was actually really excited to see that because
yes.
I come from a D&D 3.5 background. That was the first time I ever picked up D&D with my friends. And I played a fighter for the majority of my 3.5 days, and towards the end I was playing Ranger Paladin. And I had the opportunity to create a character for another 3.5 campaign not too long ago here. The first feats that I took were Power Attack, Cleave, and Great Cleave.
Oh, yeah.
And the DM looked at me like, really? Seriously? You started off with those three? I'm like, human, and you started me off at level 5. So, yeah, hell yeah, that's the 3 that I'm going to take. And got the chance to use it against a bunch of kobolds and basically cleaved through like 4 of them and then rolled just a little bit too low to get the 5th one and kill basically that entire line. So the Barbarian has an ability now that basically replaced Great Cleave, which I thought was awesome because it's my favorite feat ever, and the feats in 5e I feel are a little bit weak. So it was really awesome for me to see that. I'm like, holy crap, that's like Great Cleave. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I'll be perfectly honest. As a player and even as a DM, I'm not super up on the abilities that some of the other classes have. If I haven't played that class, I haven't really read it, unfortunately. So for me to see that, it was like, hey, might need to play a Barbarian now.
Indeed. One thing that you mentioned in that you felt the feats in 5th edition were, a little weak. That's because what was great about the feats in 3.5 have been moved into the classes themselves in 5th edition.
Got it.
Which is just amazing and makes the classes that much more unique and that much more playable. Because in 3rd edition and 3.5, if you played a monk, you only did so that you could get one of the epic classes later. That was the only reason why you ever played a monk in 3 and 3.5. Well, unless you had, other, preferences and such going on. But that, to really make the monk viable, I felt that was the only way to do so, was to take the prestige classes.
Gotcha.
Whereas in 5th edition, monk is now my favorite class. I used to.
I mean, the stuff that you've been able to do as a monk in in Desert Winds has been pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Now imagine a pixie doing that.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
No, I'm committed with Adron the way he is. In case you guys haven't seen Desert Winds, Adron is a wood elf monk, and I'm okay with it.
And while we're on the subject of DM stuff and feats, just real quick, I played in that pirate one shot a couple weeks ago, and I got to play my character Taliri, my fighter I call her slash swashbuckler, because I've basically taken the fighter and taken abilities that turn her into a pirate, essentially. I was able to pick up the Sentinel feat for her because she was 6th level for this one shot, and I forewent an ability increase, which probably would have been better for me in the long run. But Sentinel is such a powerful feat. If you are standing in melee range with somebody and they attack somebody other than you, and that person doesn't have the Sentinel feat, you get to make an attack of opportunity against them.
Yes.
And even if they disengage, you get to make an attack of opportunity against them. So it's like super, super broken feat, but I love it, and it works really well for her character since she likes charging in against the big bad. So,
but it's not really broken because it is it's a feat that anyone can take. So
true. I still, in my way of thinking, it's broken because it's crazy with Taliri. It's super crazy with Taliri.
Indeed. So
okay,
they finished up, mopping up they're not really thugs at that point. They were spaghetti. But I just love how Sam had the dwarf that he dominated loot his companions. That was awesome. But after that, they found the secret tunnel into the bunker underneath Gilmore's, and there we find Empress Salda and her children. Thank God he pointed out that the children survived, because I was worried about that as well.
Right. And then also Sherry was there too.
Yes. I expected her to be there, or at least in the rubble, if there was no bunker. I expected her to have been at the shop. So once they found the cover for it, I was like, yeah, Sherry's in there. But the big squee moment for me was Gilmore was there. Barely alive.
Barely alive.
But there. Gilmore, after he got healed up, Gilmore was talking about having gone toe-to-toe, single-handedly with Thordak. If the party had been there, and it had just been the party, Gilmore, and Thordak, they could have won it right there.
I don't know. I'm still sketchy on it. Matt proved to us with the why can't I remember the name of the green? But I mean, he was proven to us that it was going to be tough.
True, but only because they had all 4 of them there. The party didn't take overly much damage when it was just the green. It was when the other 2 showed up that they started going, oh shit, we don't have time for a one-on-one fight, and that's when they took the damage. But
right.
It was interesting that during Gilmore's little battle, Matt made sure to point out Thordak's chest.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Smooth with jagged edges and pulsed with power. So my current theory is that's how Thordak escaped. He took the soul anchor with him. It's
Yep.
in his chest right now.
Yep. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Pretty easy one to guess, but at the same time, needs to be said. And then we got, they started taking everyone back to the keep while, they split the group, one half trying to find the rest of the loot from Gilmore's store so that they would have some magical items. The other half taking, the kids and everyone back to the keep. And then we got a big,
We got the big fan service. Matt shot my theory right in the head.
Yep. Not a dragon. Just a kick-ass wizard or sorcerer.
Though, if you can find a way for me to become a dragon, that would be sexy.
Indeed. I love that line. And of course, about that time, Twitter exploded with, "We gotta find a way to make Gilmore a dragon."
Let's go talk to Bahamut, everybody. Let's go talk to Bahamut.
Indeed.
We'll start up a petition for Bahamut here in real life, and it'll transcend reality into the Critical Role universe, and all will be well, and Gilmore will be a prismatic.
Indeed. And you know what? If they ever do another one of those where you can donate and affect the game, I'm going to try to sneak that in there if I can.
Matt would be on that like a hawk.
I'm sure. But by the same token, I want to try. But no, and then so everybody stealths their way home, gets home safely, and then Vex walks up and plays wingman for Vax.
Yes.
That was cute. I did half expect Keyleth to be like, make sure you come back alive, and then, sort of flirt back, but it didn't happen. I was, aw.
Yeah, I talked her out of it.
Yeah.
He talked me out of it, as it were. Which brings us to Christmas.
Yes. Now, believe me, I love the fact that, we as critters are so supportive of something that we love. But why do we insist on torturing the party by giving Matt not one, but 2 colossal red dragons?
Alright, my theory on this is the fact that streams get crossed, and we're critters, and we're enthusiastic, and we don't consult with each other beforehand.
Oh, no. I get why there would be 2 to show up, but just even 1, why would you do that to the party? True.
Yeah. And if you watched the Periscope, I don't know how many people have gone back and watched the Periscope, and I don't know that it's still out there now unless it's out on YouTube.
It is out on YouTube. I will see if I can find it, and I will actually put that in the description below, because it's not a monetized video, so therefore does not interfere with my contract, so I can do that. I will make sure you guys get the link to that too, so you can see the thank you that Marisha and Matt put out while they were actually unboxing everything.
Yeah, because if you watch the chat during that Periscope, there's somebody else that speaks up during the Periscope and said, "I almost sent you one too," and Matt goes, "The thought is wonderful." He held his hand over his heart and said, "Aw, thank you for thinking of me." He's like, the thought does count.
Yes. As Marisha's going back there, sitting back there going, "Why would you do that to us?"
So now my thing was, Matt was trying to, during that Periscope, he was trying to figure out how to get 2 colossal dragons on the table at the same time.
Yes.
And I said, my solution is cast Blur, have Thordak cast Blur, and then you can put both colossals out on the table at the same time, and then they roll their attack and, 50-50 shot about who gets hit. I guess it's disadvantage in 5e. It's not a 50-50 shot anymore.
No, it's still. So essentially, what it is either the rules for it are set up so that you can do it either way. You can either
Okay.
do a roll a d4 and have it, or do uh, if you miss, you miss with disadvantage. Um, I prefer the d4 method myself, but that's just me. But yeah, that would get them both up there at the same time. And I was thinking, if you don't want to put them on the table right away, but you still want to
Ah,
display
yes.
them,
I
you
liked your idea.
you can either have them set up on either side of Matt so that it looks like it's part of his DM throne, or as was pointed out, and I believe you were the one who pointed this out,
Yep. Yep.
have them replace the wall sconces with them.
Yeah.
Either one would be excellent.
Yeah. Either way would be really awesome. Um, oh, we could. Okay, Game of Thrones has the throne of swords. Let's
Yes.
make a throne of colossal reds.
Oh God. Oh, you say that now, and I can see some critter watching this episode and be like, "Yep, I'm gonna do that."
Please do. I want to see it.
If you do, send us pictures. We will
Yep.
make sure it gets posted. And whether or not you send it to Matt, even if it's just something you're doing for yourself, let us see it, please.
Yeah, we want to see it. I mean, take molds of the colossal reds and then put them together. That would be. You know what? I'm gonna borrow Gilmore because this is Gilmore's glorious gossip. That would be sexy.
Indeed. So that brings us to our DM's corner and question of the week. There were several good ones that I saw. None of them actually using the hashtag, though, so they weren't directed directly to us. But, so the two questions that I saw this week was a question about dice loading, with loading being in quotation marks. Meaning what to do if a player is fudging a roll or using weighted dice. This was actually a question that Matt answered. Talking one-on-one with the player, maybe seeing if they want to, sit out a little bit because they're just getting a little too attached to what's going on. I see it as, for me, it's like second on the prime sin, the prime sins of gaming.
The first being metagaming, or
Yes.
what's the first? Okay.
The first is metagaming, because that takes all the fun out of the world. And it's sort of the same with the dice loading. And this is, again, this is my personal view on it. Yeah, you're there to have fun, you're there to be a hero, but things aren't always going to go in your way, and being a hero isn't
Easy.
It isn't
by any
easy.
means.
And it's not about always getting those hits or always getting that saving throw. It's about overcoming when you do fail.
Right. Now, I actually had a couple instances come up this week where I was, and I don't know if this question is specifically against players or if it's also DM related as well, because, we as DM sometimes fudge the roll. Usually it's in favor of the party when we fudge the roll. But I had a couple instances this week where during Adventurers League on Wednesday night, one of my players had just gotten healed for 9 hit points, and I mean this is a low level party. I think they're level 1, level 2. It's kind of mixed numbers there since they've come in at different times, but that player had just gotten hit for 9 hit or healed for 9 hit points. Well, then they were being attacked by steam mephits. That had not changed. That same steam mephit was attacking that same party member every time while other party members were attacking other creatures. So it got a critical hit, and it dealt 9 damage back to her. Well, character's a he. Anyway, dealt 9 damage back to that character right after he had just been healed for 9 points and dropped him again. And I felt horrible because I didn't fudge it. I thought about fudging it for a fraction of a second as soon as I saw the number. And I was like, no, I'm not going to fudge this particular roll because they're in a desperate situation. And then during Desert Winds, pulled the cleric in out of the Deus Ex Machina bit because you guys were struggling, and cleric comes in and heals Leonis, and then the Skeleton King hits who was it? Was it Luke? And then the blade swing through comes across and hits Leonis again and dropped Leonis again. So it was another instance of, do I fudge this damage? And I mean, all throughout that fight, I was trying to gauge, do I fudge this damage or do I let it play? And in both instances, I chose to let it play. But I think by letting it play, I've created a little bit more engaging story and increased the danger, because as a DM, we have to let it, we have to go by instincts. There's no right or wrong answer here. And in my particular instances, I think it created a bit better tension and story.
Absolutely. And for me, it comes down to the DM to create that balance. If a player is sitting there and is honest, then, in order to find that balance, the DM may have to fudge a roll. But that's the prerogative of being the DM. By agreeing to be a player, you are voluntarily giving that up so that you can be a hero.
Right. And by the same token too, what we don't want to happen is for a DM to get into a mindset where, oh, I always have to succeed, because when we get into that mindset, that's a trap. Where I'm going to mention this real briefly. I heard about a situation today where the odds were very, very poorly stacked against a party. That's all I'm going to say. And when you run into that kind of trap, it makes it no fun for the players.
Absolutely.
So as a DM, I need my party to have trust in me that I'm going to try and get them through whatever it is that I've set against them. I need them to have the trust in me that I'm going to get them through that okay, but by the same token, I don't want it to be a cakewalk.
Excuse me. Exactly. It's supposed to be a challenge. But, once a DM starts getting into the mindset of it's me against them, and it's no longer a challenge, that's
suicide.
Yeah. Go play Paranoia if that's what you want.
Yes, friend computer.
Paranoia is set up for that. D&D, not so much. Certain instances of Ravenloft, maybe, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
But the other question that I saw dealt with consequences for a player's actions. The situation was essentially a new DM was asking about how to stop their players from being murder hobos. And it was, brought up, show the players that their actions will have consequences within the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually got me thinking a little bit further. How do you show the characters in more... And, obviously when a party finishes a quest, they're going to get the quest reward. They're going to get the XP, magic items, whatever.
Right.
But there's going to be long-term consequences for that as well. And the flip side is also true. If you're playing, or if you're DMing a group of murder hobos, there's going to be long-term consequences for that. So, again, we're getting in. It comes down to balance. But do you have suggestions and ideas on a reward slash, for lack of a better term, punishment system for that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, we've seen it already play out within Critical Role when the party was going through Craighammer, and they went into, I don't remember the name of the Daphydd city. Yugvorl, was it? No, that's...
I'm not certain myself, actually, now that I think about it.
I don't recall the name of the Daphydd city, but they're going through and they're dealing with all the Dwergar. And Pike basically killed that defenseless Dwergar, and her amulet cracked. Basically not severing necessarily, but definitely putting a strain on her relationship with Sarenrae. That was an instance, that was a matte slap on the hand to Ashley, saying, hey, you're playing way out of your alignment right now. I have had DMs where if I play outside my alignment, my character becomes an NPC and now becomes the big bad. Because my character is lawful evil, chaotic evil, whatever. I've slipped too far beyond redemption. That's an extreme case. Case, and I don't like to do that. But I have had to point it out to a player before. I'm like, hey, just here's how I play alignment. I would like you to try and play your character alignment, and if you slip too far outside of that, your character will become an NPC.
Oh, absolutely. How in my particular case, I've never actually had to turn a character into an NPC. I always let them, I will shift their alignment appropriately. But by the same token, that is still their character. So right. I will leave it up to the party as far as, okay, you're all good characters. You just saw him outright murder somebody. What are you going to do about that? And turn it into a lesson, not just an object lesson, but a hands-on lesson for the party as to how are you going to deal with the consequences of somebody else's actions upon the party.
I mean, there's other stuff too that you can do. That's a really good one. One of the other things that you can do too is, if they're making evil actions frequently, NPCs that may have revered them in the past are now starting to shy away from them. The place where they go in to buy their supplies and stuff, now the prices are hiked.
Yep.
Or on the flip side, if they're doing amazing good, they're getting huge discounts. They're greeted by the NPCs warmly. They're like, "Hey, yeah, you're doing good. We're trying to help you out." So I mean, there's monetary things that you can do against the party too. May turn out that they don't get the information that they need, they don't get the equipment that they need, something along those lines, because their alignment is seriously jacked.
Indeed. But I think that is a good place to go ahead and leave off for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Kalia.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. But if you guys wish to interject your own question, again, please feel free to message us on Twitter. Use the hashtag DMsCorner, DMsCorner. And we will make sure that we take a look at that. And until next time, you guys kick back, relax, and enjoy your games.
Be sexy.
Indeed.